All right, Nicole and Mathew Bowyer.
Bowyer.
Bowyer, thank you. You you are going to prison tomorrow for your
A year and a day.
and this was for the your involvement in the Ohtani thing.
That's part of it. It's, being the largest bookmaker in the country really is the main reason they came to my home. It started with a case in Las Vegas and the casinos that they're after. That's really where this whole thing started.
I did a long video. We did like a 2-hour talk earlier in the year, which I posted recently. But if you can just talk through your story a little bit, and having Nicole here might be fun to have her interject and talk about what was going through her mind while some of these things were happening. Because your story is fascinating.
Well, thank you, Mark.
Probably one of the most fascinating stories I've done all year, and I just think it warrants a little more coverage, I think.
I appreciate it. Well, to dummy the story down, since you've already heard some of it, when I was 12 years old, the first 12 years of my life was pretty fairy tale as a kid. My parents owned a bail bonds company, and when they started having some troubles with my dad's alcohol abuse, I would say that's when my first turmoil in my life started, and I had to start learning how to adapt to adversity. And that's when I started hustling. Basically started gambling, started running a poker ring, started a paper route. I started doing everything possible to make money because as my parents were getting divorced, I saw my mom struggle and have to go get 3 jobs. And being a household with 3 brothers, 4 boys, it was pretty chaotic. And so I didn't want to ask her for money. So in that process, I just started hustling and doing anything I could to make money. And the gambling started with, sports bets or betting on Nintendo or Sega Genesis or, playing football. It didn't matter what we were gambling on. I always was gambling on things. I think because of my brothers were also gambling and kind of taught me that. And then as I learned how to create an edge for myself against pretty much anyone in high school or at the time elementary school or junior high, that developed more and more as money became more prevalent as you get older. And so when I was 16 years old, I got a job at a Chevron station, and I was selling marijuana out of the station. I was taking bets. I was running a poker ring at my house, and I started making 30, 40 grand a year at like 16 years old, which this is back in 1990, so a long time ago. And that was quite a bit of money to me. So I was the kid I went from a middle-class upbringing to where we kind of had everything we wanted to struggling to now making more money than really, not more than my mom, but pretty close to. And so our family was able to get through the struggle, but it was because my mom was realizing that I was doing something wrong. So when the poker ring got busted with some kid washing his clothes, his mom did, and she found a little note in there that said, I owe Matt $340. That's when I had a little intervention at my house with 4 moms. That was pretty embarrassing for my mom because clearly she didn't know what I was doing during the day because she was gone working. And I had a house full of kids that were coming from the whole neighborhood that were gambling and, again, taking sports bets, running poker games, even drinking, smoking weed. It didn't matter what we were doing. Anything I could find a way to hustle. So I became kind of like a Molly's game at my house in Cypress in Orange County, California. And so developing all of these hustling habits kind of ingrained in me the reality and the perception of I can go out and get things that really others couldn't.
Have you ever had a legit job?
Yeah, it's a great question. I did, yeah. I was a commodity trader for about 11 years.
That's right, yeah.
And I ended up owning a commodity brokerage firm. So from the ages of 19 to 30, I worked legitimately. But the morality of that job actually wore on me. I felt like trading commodities was calling some farmer in Kentucky or Iowa to raise money knowing that they're going to lose probably 90% of the money was morally, just the value of that job to me I hated it actually. Whereas when I started taking bets on a serious level at 21 years old, I loved it. I mean, I loved to gamble. I love sports. So the combination of the two was just deadly.
And you were taking the bets of people who knew what they were betting on.
Yeah, and
no one's being deceived.
Exactly. When a customer comes to me, they're choosing what they bet on. They're asking for the account. Whereas when I was calling to buy or sell soybeans or corn or gold, these people were just taking my recommendations. And some of them were doing their own, don't get me wrong, but I was pushing things on them and I was trying to make them money, but it was so difficult to overcome the $95 round turn, the slippage in the market, just everything was against them. All odds were stacked against them. And I was making a lot of money. I was making $700,000 I made in my first year as a broker at 21 years old. So to me, it felt great at the time because I was making legal money. But as time wore on, I realized morally it was just a terrible business. And I gravitated towards sports betting and taking bets because not only did I make a lot of money, but I loved it. And I felt even though these people that were gambling with me mostly would lose, it was more entertainment. It wasn't like they were, there were some addicts in there and some situations that occurred, but for the most part, they enjoyed it. And they were betting on games they wanted to. And, they lose $1,000, $2,000 in a week and they didn't mind. No different than going to a movie theater or, going to an event. And to be honest, when you bet a $500 or $1,000 or whatever the number it is that toots your horn on a football game, it makes it that much more entertaining. And when you win and you sit there for 3 hours and you get entertainment value, I mean, there's dopamine rush that is insane. Mm-hmm. And even Nicole started gambling quite a bit when I met her because she knew I gambled so much.
Well, it made it exciting. I had never gambled before. My gambling was going to a blackjack table, putting $10 down and hoping to win. And if I lost, I'd get so pissed and I just walk away. It wasn't like the excitement really, I think, came from obviously the way you bet. You had an entourage of people for many bad reasons, but also for reasons because you created such an entertainment value for people.
Well, she enjoyed it more than she's saying because she started betting $10,000 on a hand.
I would bet, excuse me, I bet according to what you would ask me to bet. So let's not forget, I bet for you.
Well, she did do that. Because you were such
a junkie that you needed more action, so I would put more for you.
You did do that too, but you also were gambling on your own because you enjoyed the dopamine rush, just not to the level that I did. You didn't have an addiction to it. Whereas,
no, I did not have an addiction to it.
One thing about Nicole, unlike me, is she can do things. She's so balanced, whereas there's no governor with me. It's 100 million miles an hour in everything I do, and which is why our marriage works so well.
It's good to have a partner.
I mean, she balances me to the point where I'm the guy. I've never done cocaine. I think I said this last time I was on your show, and I haven't done cocaine. And I have nothing against people that do, but the reason I haven't is because I would do the entire amount of it, because that's my personality. So I stayed away from drugs, but gambling, I can never get enough. I mean, I bet $4.6 million on a football game, and people ask me all the time, why did you bet that number? It's because that's every dollar I could get down on the game. I would have bet $7 million if I could have. I was in the Atlantis, Bahamas casino, and I bet $1.25 million there, and then I called every bookmaker I knew in the country and bet the maximum they would take, and that's why the number was $4.6 million. So Nicole would never bet.
Did you end up winning?
I ended up winning the game, yeah.
How much you make?
I made a little more than 4.6. It was like 4.8 because they were an underdog on the money line. Some of my bets were on the money line.
Kansas City?
Kansas City Chiefs beat the Eagles that year, and then that was in February. And then 8 months later, I was raided by the feds.
What is it like to be? I mean, I don't recall that game.
So
were the Chiefs winning the whole game?
No, it's quite the opposite. So I bet $4.2 million on the Chiefs, and Patrick Mahomes got hurt in the game. His ankle was hurt, so he hobbled into the halftime. And I think they were down by 10, maybe 7, 10 or 7, but they looked like crap, to be honest. And then I bet another $400,000 on the second half, and people asked me, why would you bet more if you knew he was hurt and they looked like crap? And I was like, well, I already kind of thought I was going to lose the $4.2 million. So I bet everything I could on the second half, just really knowing I was going to be in depression mode.
And Patrick Mahomes.
And he came back out. They gave him a cortisone shot, obviously. He came back out and played like the man he is, which is impressive, and they barely won. In fact, it came down to the final seconds. But that was a $9.5 million swing in my life.
What does your central nervous system do when this is going on?
Well, she won't like this analogy, but imagine the best sex you've ever had with your wife. Multiply that times 5, and that's...
to put wife.
Yes. Well, you have been my best.
Okay.
That may come off wrong. But truth be told, it's the best feeling that you've ever had in your life. For that 3-hour window, the dopamine rush is just... You can't compare it to anything. For me, I can't compare it to anything else. It's
so
like...
You might be losing.
to be honest, when you lose, sometimes you get more of a rush out of losing than winning. And I know that sounds crazy, and people have asked me all the time, how could you even say that? Well, the objection of the bet is to win, but when you lose gambling, now you feel even more compelled to come back and win, and it's like the underdog feeling, which is what I'm in now. I mean, I'm going to prison tomorrow, so I'm fighting for my life technically. Everything I'm doing is a fight, and you feel like that when you're gambling. That's why a lot of athletes gamble. It's very competitive. You always want to win. We're competitive people. I think most gamblers who are really addicts or degenerates are really competitive people, because you're just trying to beat something you can't beat. I mean, overall, you can't win in gambling unless you're a professional sharp running algorithm robots and MIT mainframe, and it's unbeatable over time. That's really a fact. I mean, I know that because I've been booking for 30 years.
And have you, like, when you stand back and look at your gambling career in bookmaking, well, bookmaking is a little different because you're making money there,
right? Clearly,
but when you're just purely gambling on a football game or whatever, did you make money or lose money in general?
Betting
overall,
definitely lost a lot, but I viewed it and I made excuses, and she could verify this.
Definitely lots of excuses, and I think that's where for me it was so confusing because I didn't realize that his occupation was fueling his gambling, and it once I finally came to and realized how much he was losing, and not just in casinos, because I feel like casinos, again, I'm not sitting there with a spreadsheet and be like, okay, we lost $2 million here, he won $3 million here, we're up overall. It was also on the back end, he had so many bookies himself, and when I finally realized how much he was booking himself with other bookmakers. I mean, you had your agents betting for you through other bookmakers. He was crazy.
It was out of control, Mark.
And when I met him, it was this way. So I didn't know the difference between him booking somebody's bet and him booking his own bet. It definitely became and then his friends would make comments about it, how crazy my husband was. And I don't know, maybe I'm dumb in this, but you don't, unless you know the industry and you know somebody who is an addict, you don't know what you don't know.
But in truth, I was very good at disguising how much I was gambling, also because I was making so much money in my operation that how could she question me when we're getting another Ferrari, another Rolls Royce, we're traveling to Monaco, we're living the life of basically 10 rock stars or celebrities and athletes, and we're doing it every 2 weeks. I mean, we were on a plane to somewhere special or Las Vegas every 2 weeks on a private jet for the last 5 years, of our relationship. We've been together 10 years. And even prior to that as well, but it got more, as I said earlier, I was a jet that was hard to hold back. And because of that, I just wanted to continue to go and keep going. And
so when you go to Monaco, I assume you're gambling there?
Yeah, we were staying in the Hotel de Paris, which is one of the nicest hotels in the world.
I was just there.
Okay, so and we were, obviously, I'd walk in, we had our own private table, which in Monaco, in the casino, it's very different. It's quiet, there's no music,
it's very quiet.
It's very serious. Mm-hmm. We had a private table with the ocean view, which nobody gets unless you have at least $2 million of euros, and which is, I don't know, right now maybe 2.2 million in the US. But point being is you have to have really big money there. I mean, there's the richest people in the world there. And I was gambling with Russian oligarchs and sheiks and all kinds of people, and I would antagonize them to bet more. And they had more money than I ever fathomed. But here's this US guy that they had no idea what I did or who I was. And, I'm a pretty arrogant guy, let's be real. I'm very confident in myself. So I would antagonize them to bet more. And they probably were worth $4 billion or something
Monaco
crazy.
Is just crazy.
It's a whole different level. Newport Beach is an amazing area here, or Beverly Hills, right?
But it's nothing.
It's
not
nothing
even close.
Compared.
Yeah.
I've never seen wealth like that anywhere in my life.
Well, I talk about in my book, there's a story where Nicole and I are working out in Monaco, and there's these two Russian, fairly young guys, I'd say 35 to 40, and I created a conversation with them, and I was like, I'll meet you in the casino later, or whatever. They were working out, and they told me that they're on their boat, and later we went and looked at their boat, and it was a $300 million yacht, so it wasn't a boat. So I was like, this is real wealth. This is like extreme wealth.
So when we landed, my daughter and I went, when we landed in Monaco from Stockholm, it was just private, you couldn't count the number of private jets that were lined up.
Right.
Yeah.
You
It's
couldn't
insane.
count them all. There were maybe 150 private jets, it seemed.
Yeah.
And then you see the boats in the harbor.
Mm-hmm.
Insane. Every one is bigger than a shopping mall.
It's
Yeah.
ridiculous. I mean,
It is.
they have helipads, and I mean, these people are living the life, and we were living that life, even though I didn't have that kind of money, because I was gambling so high that actually I would say we were treated actually better than these people, because as a gambler, you're actually given things that other customers who are regular people cannot buy. You know, rooms that they won't give to regular Joes, no matter what you're willing to pay for it. Las Vegas is a great example. If you want a villa in Las Vegas, they're going to give them to the gamblers before they give them to celebrities, because they know they're going to make much more money off of a regular gambler. And so we were treated as royalty, truly. I mean, everywhere we went. And I can't tell you the rooms that we've stayed in, experiences that we've had. You know, we had a front row private concert with Andrea Bocelli with 18 of my family members that we all flew in a private jet all the way to the Dominican Republic. How many people could say that? Like, some of the experiences are over the top. We've been in Conor McGregor, Floyd Mayweather fights, front row. We've been to every event you can think of, whether it's national championship games or, you know, Super Bowls or whatever. We've done it all because of my gambling and the chaos and the high amounts I was risking, which is really every 2 weeks, $2 million going to a casino. When the feds raided our home in October of 2023, my son was 2 years old, and he's been on 44 private jet flights in 2 years. So that kind of gives you an idea of how many times we were traveling and doing things. And we would take our nanny and, you know, our son, we would go to Vegas. They would have, in Vegas, they would have the crib laid out, they'd have the formula we wanted, they would have special this, special that. I mean, the amenities that they do and the way they treat you is, of course, you're paying for it, don't get me wrong. But I just met this service, it was just over the top. It was an amazing lifestyle.
Nicole, would you say you're attracted to the adrenaline rush or the excitement of having a partner who is living a life like this?
I would say I was when we went on our first date, it wasn't in a casino. Like, we did our first trip to a casino, but it was kind of like a mystery I was trying to figure out as it unfolded. I didn't understand what he did for a living. I thought he was a professional gambler. So it was a lifestyle that was exciting, and it was something. I grew up with a very frugal father, and I'd go to the movies and he would count out to like the penny of how much the movie would cost and then what the tax would be. And so that I would get, like, say back in the day it was $6.75 after tax.
That gets on your nerves after a while.
I would get exactly that. And then my friends would get, $20 so they can get a snack. And my dad would be like, well, there's Trader Joe's. Here's a couple dollars, go get like a snack. Or he tell me there's snacks at home you can bring with you. So when I was 15, I got my first job at a donut store, and I would wake my dad up at 5 a.m, and then I would make him drive me until I got my permit. Then he would sleep in the passenger seat next to me, and I would drive us. And then when I turned 16, I saved for my down payment on my car, and I was just very driven to make my own money because I hated asking my dad for money. And then at 16, I got a second job. So I worked at a donut store in the morning at 5 a.m, and then I would leave by 10:30 to go to a restaurant and be a hostess. And then during the weekdays, I was in high school, so then I would play basketball, have to get there at 5 a.m. for practice, and then you have after school practice. So I feel like, although I didn't have a paper route, I definitely always hustled for the things that I wanted and that I was passionate about. And I think that was what drew me to him, is he had such a hustle and a passion for whatever he did for life. And I mean, yes, it was a very nice lifestyle, but truly the more fancy, so to speak, and nicer it became, the more stressful life became, and the more I got so turned off from it, and the more we started fighting. And I couldn't wait for it to just stop. I couldn't wait for him to stop gambling. And people would always say to me, God, he handles his stress so well. You would never know if Matt's up $1 million or down $1 million. And then I would, I'd just smile and be like, yeah. And in my head, I'd be like, no, I'm glad you think that. But behind closed doors, I see a man in a sauna at 3 a.m. beside himself that just blew $2-3 million. And we go home. He's like, it's fine, Nicole. You know how I'll pick up the pieces. I'll make it back times 10. And then he would. So that drive that I loved about him and that determination to make it back times 10, it became kind of the Achilles in our relationship, because I couldn't stand it, because it perpetuated his gambling addiction, and it perpetuated his need and his drive to just make more and do more. So after losing over 16.4 million, whatever it was, in Resort World, I'll never forget. We were right by the sports book, and he was robbing Peter to pay Paul to, make up from credit lines and get his line going, or he didn't have a credit line, I'm sorry, but just to make up the money to put a deposit down. It's probably like speaking alien at this point, so unless you know how the gambling system works. Anyway, he had gambled his last bit away at the sports book, and he was just pacing back and forth beside himself. And at that moment, I thought, I can't do this anymore. And I'm strolling my son, and I just thought, yeah, from an outside perspective, it's hard to have an argument with him, because, oh, well, you have a butler upstairs and you have this. Like, that's nice. It looks nice in theory, but this isn't fun. Like, this is not the husband and the man and the father that I want my son to emulate. And I just remember thinking, I am in love with this man, but how am I going to continue doing this? I can't do this. And the raid truly was, there's so many blessings that came from the raid, and it pulled him out of something that I thought I had no chance of ever being able to help him get out of. And I know that he would never have gotten out of it. And I don't know if we would be together right now. I truly don't know, because I truly was so done.
So they raided your home?
Yeah, they raided October 5th, 2023. The federal agents, IRS, FBI, Homeland Security. There was 29 of them with the dog. And I was putting my son in her G-Wagon, and then all of a sudden I heard FBI freeze. And I look over to my left, and there's 8 AR rifles literally pointing at me. And I said, okay, well, life's about to change drastically, so I'm very calm. I mean, she's right. I would definitely not show my stress to many people except for her, really. And so I gathered my son, and they didn't handcuff me because I was holding him. And then they handcuffed my friend, who was actually, we were taking my son to the park. And then they scattered us around the driveway. And then they said, who's in the home? And I was like, oh God, here we go. Nicole was in there, of course, and then a handyman. So after you hear this screaming and yelling, because they're taking that, whatever they call that ram thing, they're pretty much bowling down the garage door, because our garage door was open, so to go into our home. And then they had the weapons drawn, and then I can't see.
You couldn't have opened the door for them?
No, because I'm held in the driveway. I can't even actually see what they're doing. I can just hear it. And they do want to make a presence. They want to catch you off guard. They don't know what they're coming into, to their defense. And even though I told them it's my wife and a handyman, but they come in guns a-blazing.
That's their fantasy to do this kind of shit.
Yeah, so sadly, I think some of them it is. Some of them, I think, are just protecting themselves, because they could be walking into a position of somebody with weapons shooting back or whatever. I'm sure they've seen it all. But I think they knew. At this point, they knew. They've already raided me in 2014. They knew I didn't have any weapons. They know I'm a father of 5. And so I definitely think it was overboard drastically. But whatever, it is what it is. So they're doing their job. They go in, and then I see her come out crying when handcuffs, which is a moment that, it's a nightmare I still have to this day. And I just knew that my life was changing drastically, but I recalibrated, which is why I named my book that, because that was a moment of, okay, I have to assess the damage and fix the situation, which I couldn't do much. I had to let them raid the home and do their thing and take everything in our home. $300,000 worth of purses and handbags and jewelry and watches, and of course all of our cash. I don't know, maybe $80,000 in casino chips I had. So they took all of that, and computers. And when you see people taking duffel bags of cash, computers, and all your items and putting it into their cars, and you have no control, it's a very helpless feeling. Along with the fact that I'm reeling in my mind. I have 5 kids to feed. I just lost my business. I know it's done. And my wife, I'm consoling her as best I can, but I know that she's reeling. So it's like, okay, but I had to recalibrate immediately. So what did I do? I started writing a book, hired an attorney, and changed my life immediately from that day forward for the last 2 years, because it's been exactly 2 years. We've been recalibrating and fighting every which way. And to her point, she is correct. I was so enthralled in my gambling and my addiction and growing my business and becoming the biggest in the world of a bookmaker / gambler, because I was really, I'm not going to say the biggest of both, but I was definitely in the top of both of those arenas. I was just aspiring to do more. And I was so caught up in it that I wasn't even being as present as I should have been as a father, as a husband, because I was just so enthralled in that business. And even though she would try to talk to me and she's so balanced, I would just make excuses. And so this FBI raid is probably the best thing that ever happened to us, because I would much rather have her and my family than, continue to build this conglomerate business where I'm empty inside. And the path that I have now has been so much better. In 2 years, I think I've grown more than the first 48 years of my life.
Have you stopped gambling?
Yeah, I was forced to, so I stopped for that reason alone.
It's very happy. The judge put an order that he is not allowed to step foot into casino. He can't be a certain amount of feet away from a racetrack. They monitor every device we have in our home. And so it had to stop.
And you're happier?
I'm happier, yes.
I am
I
too.
feel like I got my husband back. I feel like the man I had met on day one, I got back. Because
What is your father's take on your husband? Because he's so frugal. Your father is so frugal.
Oh my God, he is. He's beside himself.
I'm sure Matthew's the opposite of frugal.
Yes,
he is,
very
yeah.
much so.
He is beside himself when he sees the opulence that happens in a casino like that with the butlers, and he's like a kid in a candy store at the same time, because he just looks at everything, and then the way Matt is with his lifestyle, he's just.
How about when I showed up at the Rolls Royce just one afternoon? I went to Pachanga Casino here in Southern California, and I won $300,000. And I just decided on the way home I'm going to go buy a brand new Rolls Royce, a $500,000 car. So I went to the dealership and I paid cash, and I bought the car. And I drove it home, and it's this beautiful Cullinan Rolls Royce with Dodger blue interior. Her dad's a Dodger fan. He comes over the house that day, and he's like, "What in the fuck?" I said, "I already had a Bentley. I already had
My dad would pull me aside and say, "Don't you think he should start saving, honey? Like this, I mean, he needs to start saving." And I was like, "Dad, it's okay. Just let him do him. Let."
Yeah.
And your take on that is almost just make more.
Yeah, and then
100%,
his take is
and
the
I would.
complete opposite. Yeah.
Yeah, and I truly would. But, here's the problem. To make more, you take more risks, more stress, and more, here we are again with that same thing that she's having trouble with, which looking back now when I'm out of the storm, because when you're in the storm, you don't even think of those things. You're just fighting. You're doing your thing. But now that I'm taken out of the equation, I realize how crazy it really was and how chaotic and how much I was actually gambling. I mean, I was betting $400,000 even at home per game through bookmakers, 10 games a day. That's $4 million a day in action. You multiply that times 7. I mean, you're talking $28 million in bets in a week. Plus, I'm taking that type of action. So the amount of risk exposure every week is, $50, $60 million in wagers.
So the bookmaking that you were doing, that was illegal?
Yeah, because I'm in the state of California. It's illegal, but also it would have been illegal anyway, because they'll never give a license to Mark, Matt, Nicole. It's only these conglomerate corporations, FanDuel, DraftKings, Seizures. It's really unfair. It's no different than the weed business, right? Where they only give you so many licenses, and that's why in the weed industry, most of these people in this business are doing black market stuff still, because the taxes are way too high, and they can't even provide or take care of things legally, so they're forced to do illegal activities. Bookmaking is no different. And also, these FanDuel and DraftKings, they do a financial colonoscopy of you to open an account. They've made it so difficult that a lot of people don't want to deal with a legal bookmaker. They'd rather bet with an illegal bookmaker. It's more of a relationship base. It's much easier. Mark, you bet with me. When I was running my business, if you won 10 grand, I would have a guy here at Monday at 8 a.m. with an envelope. Or if you wanted it in Venmo or Cash App or Apple Pay or however you wanted the money, crypto, it didn't matter. You were paid right away. FanDuel and DraftKings, you got to call, do a debit. It hits your credit card. It's all traceable. Your wife sees it. There's just so many things that people don't understand why illegal bookmakers will never die.
Interesting. Are you happier now that you stopped gambling?
I miss it. I mean,
bet you
I
miss
miss the dopamine rush. I do miss watching the games with my friends and just having that rush, but I get it in other ways. I get it in the fight I'm in right now. You know, as I walk into prison tomorrow, I have 5 kids to feed. I have an amazing, the most blessed human being as a wife, and these are the things I'm fighting for. So, you know, the arc of my story and the arc of my life has always been kind of an underdog kid who had everything, then kind of didn't have everything, and then I've rebuilt everything on my own. I've never received a dollar from anyone. And then as I built this really major business, now it's crashed, right? And the whole world is like turned on me per se, except for my immediate circle. And what I mean by that is it's my fault, my choice. I'm not a victim, but everyone's counting me out. I'm 50 years old. I'm now a felon. I can't get a license. I can't go sell mortgages, or I'm a felon. They won't allow me to even take the exam. I can't vote. There's a lot of things that I can't do, but those are all just challenges for me. It's an adversity that I'll face and I'll overcome.
See, with whatever is in your personality, your DNA, whatever it is that made you do that, the gambling and the bookmaking and all that,
right?
You can apply that to something that's legal.
Yeah.
Correct, and that's,
you'll find it.
I will, and I'm excited about it, actually. Taking risk, as we discussed off camera, is something you and I are adverse to. Clearly, I've just chosen the wrong field. I could have been a CEO of Verizon or Apple or something. I just chose to do something that drew me in because I love sports and gambling. So that poor choice has led me to be here today, but it's also made me the man I am today. So, you know, I'm actually grateful for it. People ask me this question all the time: do you have any regrets? And the truth of the matter is, everybody has regrets in their life. Everybody makes decisions they wish they could take back, they could change, they wish they would have do-over. But if you don't have those situations in your life, it would change the course of your life. So I really don't regret it. I mean, it's made me exactly who I am. Our relationship's the best it's ever been. My relationship with my children's the best it's ever been. Even the friends who've stuck by me, my circle is tight. I walk into prison stronger today, which I'm going tomorrow, than I've ever been in my life. I'm ready for the next challenge. I will go run the prison, per se. I mean, I'll do my thing. I'll use my personality and my brain and my wits to stay out of trouble and, you know, handle situations that come my way.
You're only going to be, it's only a 1-year sentence, right?
Yeah, it's a year, and, you know, that'll go by fast. It's going to be difficult being away from her and the kids, but again, adversity, it's mindset. It's really everything I've ever done in my life.
Well, your story is so fascinating that I think that it's got legs to turn into documentaries,
I hope so.
movies.
I signed a deal for a shopping agreement for a documentary, which we're filming now. I do have feature film offers currently. I got signed with WME. They're the agency that signed me. And I have 2 entertainment attorneys that are fantastic. So we're fielding tons of offers. I've been on Good Day New York. I've been on many major podcasts. I've done a lot of media. I really promoted myself as best I can. I wrote my book Recalibrate, which is an Amazon bestseller in the first week. I've done everything I can to prove to her, because she didn't know me. She knew me basically when I was 39 or 40 when we met, and I was a bookmaker, and that's all I did. So she never really got to see my legal side of ability to work and make things happen. So I'm actually getting to show that to her, which has been exciting. I think she's seen something she didn't know that was even in me.
Yeah, people that don't understand personality types like yours will say you're done. But because I have insight into the way your mind works, you can do this all over again.
Not only all over again, I'll do it better.
Yeah.
There's no doubt. I will make more money in the next 10 to 15 years than I ever will in my life. But I'll tell you why. Every business I've been in so far has been win-lose. The person I'm selling to on the other side, I need them to lose to make money. This is the first time in my life it's win-win. And that's a dangerous thing for me. When I'm doing something, I'm impacting the world. I'm helping others with gambling addiction, alcohol, drugs, even people who are ultra successful. You could be a CEO of Verizon and make millions on millions of dollars, but you could still use, everyone needs motivation and mindset and somebody to help them, get to the next level. I can provide that for people. I'm not perfect. I could use it as well. I think we all can, right? That's why people go to therapy. They don't go to a therapist because they're always just so screwed up. They go to therapy to remain aligned and stay on track and learn and grow. And I learn from, just like you do. I mean, you bring people on this show, and it's not because you want to see people who are in just these dark places. I mean, that's part of what happens, but you learn from them, and hopefully they learn from theirs, telling their stories, which is why we're so glad to be here today, because somebody watching this is going to learn something. They're going to get some motivation. they're gonna. Some of them will probably clown me like they did in the last video, but that's life. I mean, those are the people who are envious. But the people that want to learn something and grow will take the positive of this and put it in their own life and make it work.
Yeah, I like to learn. That's why I do. That's why I'm doing this. And I learn from the tragic stories. And I also learn from the inspirational stories.
I learned from your show as well, from your channel, because I can learn from a homeless person. And what mistakes have they made? What did they choose to go wrong, and what did they learn from that? Or what am I learning from that? Maybe they didn't learn yet, but I'm learning from that. That's life. The people that are willing to grow and learn and evolve are always the ones that are going to do better in life.
Yeah.
That's why I really love this platform. And that's why we were excited to be here again, to be honest with you, because, we're not getting paid to be here. And at the end of the day, well, actually, I would like to talk to you about that. But at the end of the day, it's an honor to be here, truly.
Cool. Thank you. The Shohei Ohtani's case. Tell me about that, because that was going on for how long?
So I got raided in October, and Shohei Ohtani, being the largest athlete in the world right now, and probably the best athlete in the world, definitely the best baseball player to ever set foot on the planet, who hit 2 home runs just the other night. Yeah, it's crazy. He is amazing, and I actually give him credit. He's overcome adversity more than anyone, because he had this target on his back as far as this whole case, why everyone thought that the feds came to my home was because of Shohei Ohtani. I was taking bets from the interpreter. It wasn't. It was because of Las Vegas and all the KYC rule or law not being enforced by the casinos, which led them to me. So in that transition, I got raided in October, and then in January, Tisha Thompson, a very high reporter at ESPN, sent a letter and showed up at my house at the same time, literally within a day apart. And the letter said that I'm flying into California to see you. I'm hoping you'll see me. And if so, I have some sources that have a lot of information I'd like to discuss with you. And right away, I was like, oh my God, this is a problem, because I did not disclose to the United States government that Shohei Ohtani's interpreter was betting with me. I didn't disclose anything to them. I didn't talk about people on my telephone. I was just, dealing with, I'm pleading guilty. Let me get out of this mess as best I can. Let's minimize everything. So when she showed up at our home, Nicole and I sat there with my attorney, and we made an agreement with her to just let her speak and tell us what she knows. That was our agreement. We had nothing to lose. Well, about 10 minutes in the conversation, maybe 15 minutes, she didn't mention anything about Shohei Ohtani. So her and I were like, in fact, we went and got a water and went to the restroom. We're like, ooh, I think we're dodging a bullet here. And then she started with the Vegas casinos and da-da-da. And then she said, so please tell me about Shohei Ohtani being your client. I said, oh my God, here we go. So we didn't address or answer any of her questions. We just said, okay, what else do you know? And then we immediately went right to the U.S. government and had to tell them about Ipe Mizuhara betting through my site, because she was going to put out a report. She didn't say right away because she was still getting her sources, but we wanted to beat them to the punch, because finding out about this situation through the media would be very bad for me. So I was able to actually discuss it with them and tell them before they heard it from her. That being said, and unravel this entire sports betting scandal, which is the biggest in the history. Shohei Ohtani's interpreter, Ipe Mizuhara, stole $17 million from Shohei Ohtani's bank account and wired it to me, 16.2 of it to me. And that was feeding my gambling habit / lifestyle. And therefore, it made the charges on me much higher, because now the money laundering charges are higher. Now the tax problem is higher. Everything became exaggerated. And that case became so media storm crazy that we had Japanese and reporters flying in from Japan, showing up at our house every day. We would literally walk our dog and we'd have 10 cameras in our face. And it was just a lot to take on during the midst of a federal case. Because being in a federal case, if you've never been through one, is you couldn't even describe it to somebody, the anxiety and just everything you go through. And then when you're on every sensationalized media platform in the world about Shohei Ohtani, because it's the biggest player in the world, that made it that much harder. And there was just a lot of scrutiny.
How was it for you, Nicole? All this?
It was a
craziness?
lot. Yeah. I remember when we had, when she first published the story and we got this huge influx of media at our house, I think someone rang the doorbell, and then I went to, our garage was open, so I wanted to shut it. And when I ran out there, I didn't realize how much media was there. And I remember I immediately ran back in the house, and I was like, I was just more shocked. And then that night we were in bed and we were just sitting there kind of just adrenaline drained. And on the TV was Channel 4 News, and it was like, it went from this angle, it went Orange County bookmaker, Mathew Bowyer of San Juan Capital, and it just kept zooming. And then we looked at each other, and I'm like, is this
Yeah, we just said,
real?
what the fuck is going on here? Like,
Yeah.
You never anticipate turning on every news channel, ESPN included, and seeing your face plastered across the TV. Like, especially it'd be different if I was Brad Pitt and I just had an amazing movie and they're talking, or some guy who saved some kid out of a burning church. Great, but that's not exactly what was being displayed here. And in fact, they sensationalized it to the point where they just talk about all the negative things, the bookmaking, the laundering, the gambling.
Do you have IRS problems as well?
I'd say just a little bit, $10 million in federal taxes that I owe right now. I had to pay $1.7 million in restitution, which I've already paid in full. And they're charging me right now, it's roughly $60,000 a month in interest on the $10 million, which we're dealing with. So, I own properties and we're having to liquidate things. And yeah, it's a disaster. I mean, luckily for me, her father didn't know that I was saving some money. So that being said, we have some assets, but we're in the process of figuring all that out, which is a difficult task.
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, I think every day, especially in the beginning, was just a new wave of information, a new wave of anxiety between the finances. And I remember sitting with our IRS, was this Jonathan? What is
the tax attorney.
With our tax attorney. And he said, okay, well, right now we're going to deal with the federal level. In about 5 to 7 years from now, you're going to have to deal with, 1 to 7 years, because they're so backed up, you're going to have to deal with the state. And then you have another entity after that you're going to have to deal with. And I just thought, what the fuck?
It never ends.
I thought.
Yeah, until they get paid. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what they want, is their money.
Yeah.
And I understand. When I run a business, I wanted my money. So even though I don't like it, and I don't agree with, and the reason I don't agree with it is, one of my charges was a falsified tax return, and we tried to explain this to the prosecutor, but they weren't going for it. I lost $4 million that year in the casinos, and we tried to offset that against my income, but they wouldn't allow that because I was running an illegal business. So even though some of the bets I made were to offset my business, to hedge off customers' action, it wasn't acceptable. So here's this thing across the so the media, NBC, ESPN, guy didn't pay taxes, basically. That's not true. That year in particular that I got charged, I sent $683,000 to the IRS. So, most bookmakers don't send anything. I had to justify my lifestyle. We owned homes, and my kids were in private schools, and so it wasn't like I was flipping off the IRS completely. Did I pay the right amount of taxes? Obviously not. That's why I'm in trouble. But now I will be, and there's no question I'll never toe the line there again.
How much do they want you to pay?
$10 million.
$10 million.
Yeah. 10 million is what let me rephrase that. The amount of money that I underpaid was $4 million, which I've had to pay restitution 1.7 on. And then they charged me a $1.25 million fine. The $10 million that I owe is because I had to file a correct return on 2023 return, and I had to claim money that I never received through my website because the IRS agent that is on my case would not give us a number that I owe the IRS because I didn't keep records of all of my income. So we said to them, just tell us what you want Mr. Bowyer to pay and what you need to put on his return. He's happy to do that. They couldn't even give us that number. So I had to hire 4 different CPA firms to come in and audit everything on my website and my personal expenses, which cost me a ton of more money. I spent over $1 million in attorneys and CPAs and everything. We had 7 attorneys, 4 CPAs. I can go on and on. But the point is, I had to dissect my return because if I filed an incorrect tax return for 2023, I'd be committing another crime. So even though I didn't know what that was, we had to figure it out. And that, if you can imagine, I just described to you what kind of gambling I was doing, and my website took over $1 billion in wagers in 2023. I mean, that's unfathomable. ePayment Zahara bet $326 million through my website. So you had to explain all these transactions. I was moving $5 to $7 million every Monday throughout the country. So it was like a maze that was impossible to figure out. But with 4 different CPAs, that's how we got to the bottom line and figured everything out. So I overpaid is my point. I mean, I had to claim on money that I never received.
Do you think the stress of all this lifestyle you were leading took a toll on you?
Yeah, but I think the federal case was worse because I was immune to the stress of the gambling and the business I ran compared to the federal case. But yes, it definitely took a toll. I'm 50 years old. Some people attacked me on this last one about my.
You look good for 50.
But they like to poke fun. But I think I would look a lot better if I was a regular Joe. Let's call it.
I interviewed Archie Karras. He was a whale gambler in Vegas, and he told me that the wear and tear on his central nervous system, just the stress that he was going under, was immense.
No doubt. That's the problem.
I think it's a different stress, though, from my perspective. Like, he was under an immense stress in the gambling world, but he knew what the waves would come and go, so to speak.
That's true.
He knew the tide. This was the unknown, and the unknown's a completely different stress factor.
They're going to pull a number out of a hat.
How long are you going to get? 4 or 5 years? What levels are you at? And then our lawyer coming over on day one, take your kids out of private school, sell your house now, don't finish the construction, sell all your cars, sell every asset you have. Any jewelry they haven't taken, you need to sell it now.
They told you to do all this?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so when you get hit with that, and then, the next wave of things is, the IRS, and the next wave is you have this frenzy of media at your house. There was just so much hitting us at once and from different angles that it was the unknown, where for me, I think he looked more stressed in gambling, just the images and the flashes that come back from the lows. But I think he was just so used to it. It felt like, his whole life.
I knew I could climb out of those messes. This one, I listen, no matter what happens to me, I'll figure it out. I mean, like you said earlier, as I believe you will. But sometimes you get hit over the side of the head and it hurts, and you have to actually even question, how am I going to dig out of this hole? There's always a light, but this one was the hardest one to ever dig out of for me. But I'm almost there. I mean, I'm going to prison tomorrow in Lompoc, California, and I'm going to be facing some interesting challenges, right? Being told, counting 4 times a day and not being able to leave the yard and reporting here and having a job, cleaning up a kitchen or whatever.
All you have to do is tell some stories, and you'll make friends everywhere you go.
I think so. I'm charismatic, and I'm a personable guy, and I get along with people, and I also can defend myself. So if things go down, I'll deal with them, right?
Do you still have the Rolls Royce and the Bentley?
I sold them all.
You sold them all.
Yeah, I sold every car. I've sold a lot of our liquor collection, wine. I had about $1 million worth of liquor and wine. That's how we've survived, is just getting rid of assets.
That must have been so difficult to just part with all those things.
Yes and no. I'll tell you why it's not. Those are material things, and although I love material things and I love money, and I definitely have a big ego, I say that honestly because I'm authentic.
But they're also symbols of a lifestyle that you were providing for your wife and your kids.
Right.
And you're seeing that
leave, right?
Leave, yeah.
But here's the thing. In this grind, in this process, I'm so thrilled that when I do it back the right way, legally, and I go purchase those things again, it's going to mean so much more.
Yeah.
Losing it and actually going to get it is probably the biggest challenge and the best feeling I'm going to have. And the process that I'm talking about right this minute is actually, even visualizing it is so exhilarating. That's my new dopamine rush.
Yeah, I'm certain you're going to recreate. Like a phoenix, you'll come back bigger and better and more legal than before.
Mark, don't bet against me. Definitely don't bet against me. I will. There's no doubt. And I'm going to do it not only because I like those things, because I do love material things, but I'm going to do it to show her and my kids. I want them to see how to overcome adversity, how to manage stress, how to deal with these things, and how valuable of a lesson is that to my children, really. And even the people around me, they're going to have that much more respect for me. I mean, I already have a lot of respect, but because I did build a huge business and I was doing bigger numbers than almost anyone in the country and gambling at the highest level in the country. I mean, how many people can say they've done what I've done? I've taken a lot of risk. And yeah, there's some negative things that have come from it, right? I'm going to prison tomorrow. But, if I had to do it all over again, I would do it again. And I'm going to do it again, but this time legally. And I'm very excited about the next chapter. I really am.
The stress of what was worse, the gambling or the bookmaking?
Gambling, for sure. The bookmaking business was...
But you knew it was illegal, right?
I did, but I knew it's unbeatable. I couldn't lose. Whereas gambling, not only did I lose, I was like it was self-sabotaging my.
Like when you went to Monaco for a week or so. Did you make or lose money?
We won 1.4 million. I couldn't lose there. It was one of the best trips of our life. I've won more money than that, but overall trip is probably the most euphoric trip we've ever had together. I mean, literally. We were at Le Grill at Hotel de Paris. I'm sure you've been to the restaurants.
And
fantastic.
How were you gambling? What were you playing?
That time, it was 100,000 a hand was my max. It became bigger later.
Playing blackjack?
Baccarat.
Baccarat.
Yeah. Their blackjack's a little weird there, but I love Baccarat. I was playing Baccarat there. Her and I.
Wait, you would say euphoric, but I think you should say why it's euphoric.
Well, why was it euphoric for you?
No. For you, it was euphoric because there's been 2 times he said, I think you tell the story better, but in his life where, because in Baccarat, most people, they'll follow a pattern. Like if banker runs, they'll see a drop and they won't get off of the banker run until it switches. And then it kind of starts creating a pattern on a screen. So you create in your mind what you're going to choose next based on the pattern you see forming in front of you. Well, there was one time in Louisiana and also in Monaco where he couldn't lose. And I remember he turned to me just those 2 times and he said, I'm having deja vu. I've been here before. He said, I'm not going to look at the screen. I know the next 10 hands. And then he said the 10 hands to me at the table, and then he bet them according to.
It was only 6 hands.
Or whatever, 6. So he bet like his highest amount, and then he like said in advance what they were, and then they were all 6 hands. So when we were in Monaco, he like couldn't lose, and then he said, he's like, I've been here before, like I know the next. He's like, I'm having that moment again.
You literally were not losing?
No.
Well, I'll put it to you this way, Mark. I've been on literally like 30, 40 podcasts. Everyone knows that who's watching this, who's seen my story. I've never told this story at any level because I didn't think people would believe me. So I'm actually glad she brought it up because it's almost unbelievable. And the first experience that she's talking about, we were in Louisiana. It's called Le Berge. It's kind of a dumpy casino, to be honest. The limit there.
Back in time.
Yeah, it really is. But the limit for me there, because it's not a big casino, was 40,000 a hand. And we had, I think, 6 of us at the table. I think it was 6, right? And so my friends were there.
Right.
And I said to all of them, I said, listen, if this next hand is player, I promise you, I know what the next 5 are coming after this. And it was weird. It was like, we've all had, I think everyone's had deja vu moments, but it was like, I have already been sitting in this chair. I've already been in this exact moment. And I've always had like a little bit of I've had a great sense of reading people and reading situations, but this is different. This is like literally reliving a moment. And people are going to watch this and think I'm fucking crazy.
Is it counting cards? Or
no, it's different than that. This is counting cards. I do, and I'm very good at it. And I'm barred at most casinos and playing blackjack. So that's why I play Baccarat.
Like, have you had deja vu where you're like, I've been here before?
I'm talking about literally, Mark, like I have been in this chair. I don't know if it was 10 lifetimes ago, and I'm not even spiritual. I mean, she'll tell you she's much more spiritual to me, but I said, just trust me on this. I know what's coming. And the hand came player, and then I just knew it. So I wrote it down. I said, watch, it's going to go banker, banker, player. I don't remember exactly what the 6 were, and so we bet the next hand for about half the max because we were making sure I wasn't full of shit, and it won. And then the next hand was max. Everybody at the table, max. And after the 6th hand, which we won all 6, and they were my own friends who've been gambling with me for 10, 15 years, could not believe I've never said this in my life. They're like, what's coming next? I'm like, it's over. I don't know. I have no idea. I mean, I truly don't.
And you bailed?
No, we kept gambling, of course. We probably ended up losing it all back. But the story and the point of the story is that is 100% true. I knew what was coming. I don't know how I knew. It was just something that came in me. So we had the second moment in Monaco. It was just her and I won $1 million within the first 2 nights. And I told her, I'm like, I want to go home with this money. We're having such a great time. And I was like, why don't we do this? We'll just take $100,000 and we'll go to the casino. And if we lose, we'll just shut it down. That way we go home a $1 million winner, right? Or 900,000. So we go to the casino, her and I, we're having cocktails and being Americans, which are louder than they like in Monaco at the tables.
We have to whisper at the table.
Yeah, you gotta be very quiet, even though we have a private table. And I'm just betting and I'm like laughing. And the dealers I'm truly laughing because I can't lose. And she's like, are you having one of those moments? I'm like, yeah. So we win 100,000, and we go shopping. In fact, we bought these. Are you wearing your watch? No, we bought these Breitlinks, and they're like 45,000 a piece or 40,000, something like that.
But you had the moment is what you're.
Yeah, but one point is we went shopping, and then we went back the next day and did it again. But this particular moment is where I could call every single hand for about 4 or 5 hands. There was nothing crazy. It's not like for an hour straight. And same thing. Another euphoric moment where I knew what was happening, but it's never happened again. That's twice in my life of gambling.
How do you explain that?
I don't know how to, other than the fact that it's never happened again, and I'm waiting for it to. And not even a gambling moment, just to be able to see something coming, foresee the future, so to speak. And I know it sounds crazy. A lot of people are not going to believe even what I'm saying.
I'm like, sorry, I brought it up.
Well, I'm reliving it now. But those 2 moments for me is the only time in my life. And I've gambled every day since I was 12 years old, except for the last year and a half because I couldn't. But
that's crazy.
Yeah, it was wild.
And is putting down the gambling going to be something you can do?
I'm honest, so I don't know. We'll see. I've been forced to. It'll be interesting to see when I get back out of this and I pay everything off and I'm doing well again, how I handle that task. I assure you this, I will not risk my marriage. There's no chance. So if there's any form of gambling that happens, it will be approved by the boss.
Has Nicole ever given you an ultimatum that you have
no,
to do
not
this,
really.
you have to do that?
She's always been very respectful, but this time, I've had an ultimatum in the last year and a half. She basically has said, you're fucking not gambling. But I've been forced for that by the court.
How much debt are you in right now?
We owe $10 million to the IRS. So
that's the big one?
Yeah, that's pretty much all the debt we have. We don't owe other people, but actually that's not true. I owe a couple bookmakers money because when I was raided, I was betting with bookmakers and I had to pause that. My balance with them, I'm very honorable. I've always paid them, so they're friends of mine. But that's about it, knock on wood. So, because I've been able to survive off selling some of our things, and of course I'm still working. I've been doing some motivational speaking events and anything I can to hustle. My wife owns a clothing line. Nicole owns a clothing line called Coco on the Go, which does very well. She's had for 10 years. And so we're surviving on these things.
What's the name of your clothing line?
Coco on the Go.
Coco on the Go?
Yeah, so my nickname growing up was Coco. And because my mom's best friend who used to watch me said I was like a little cocoa bean, I wouldn't sit still. And then my dad used to complain, he's like, you're just like your mom, you're just always on the go. And then when I was trying to figure out a name for my company, it was like, I just thought Coco on the Go, because it's more personal. And I've had it for 10 years. I have my full online store. I have over 340 not brick and mortars, but people that wholesale my accounts, from big spas and big brand names to smaller boutiques and Pilates studios.
That's great.
I mean, she's in all the montages.
Watch your wife bail you out of this situation.
Listen, I wouldn't bet against her either, truly. But I won't need her to do that. I'll perform, and to be honest, I'll perform on a big level. I mean, I'm excited about it, actually.
Yeah, you guys are an amazing couple.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah.
And I believe in you, Matt. I think you have what it takes to do something great. You just did something that was maybe outside the law.
Yeah. And I don't even agree with those laws, but I knew it was outside the law. So
how do you feel about the bookmaking being legal now?
It's just frustrating to see FanDuel have LeBron James and Kevin Hart advertising for it, and they're making gazillion dollars doing it, but yet you or I can't operate. I just don't think it's fair. Because the business I ran better than FanDuel, to be honest. I mean, the logistics and everything I was doing were far more superior than theirs. And my clients would tell you that. I had 40, 50 people that wanted to write letters to the judge that lost millions of dollars to me to say how amazing I was. And most people hate their bookmaker. They lose money to him. How do you like that person? But I built relationships. It's not just a number. I actually had rapport and relationships and treated my clients with respect, gave them discounts and kickbacks that FanDuel and DraftKings never would. And for that reason, of course I wanted to make money. That's why I ran my business. But it wasn't to squeeze every penny out of them. It was to actually have a relationship and give them a place to be entertained. And of course I wanted to win money off them, but I knew I would over time. So why not give some of it back? Why not, keep them in the game and let them enjoy it? And that philosophy is what got me bigger and bigger. And I trained my agents throughout the country to do the same thing. And I knew how to scale a business. And I'll do it again. just legally.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. Let me ask you one last question, Matt. What would you say is the most important lesson you've learned as you're getting ready to go to prison?
I would say the main question I would ask you or anybody in life is to ask themselves, how do I define success? Probably the most important question you could ask yourself on a daily basis, or even before you make any major decision. And my definition of success has changed drastically throughout my life, but I didn't think long-term enough. Susie Welsh has a great 10-10-10 rule. I think that applies in my life more now. You think about every major decision you make, 10 days, 10 months, 10 years. How does this decision affect me? And had I done that, I don't believe I'd be sitting here today. But I'm grateful again for why I am. But learning to actually educate myself on what my decisions are and what I think about before I make them, as opposed to being impulsive or just doing things, that's what I've learned more than anything. But I also am very excited about having an impact and doing something with passion. Because I did do that, but it was illegal. Now I'm going to do something on the legal side.
For me, the hardest part for tomorrow is my son, and he's 4 years old. So the decision that we have to make is, do I, in this next year, take him to visit his dad? Do I want that memory embedded, or do we say, dad's working, dad's on a work trip, and since they don't really have quite a concept of time, it just will come and go quickly for him. At least I think so. So as a mom, it's also very hard because I grew up visiting my dad in jail, and I have a hard time envisioning taking my son. It's definitely like an emotional point for me, because I remember being so excited. I could not wait to see my dad. And I don't know if by not taking him, if I'm taking that away from him. So I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, we're going to feel that out.
Yeah.
I think the truth is always what's best.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
And your son can watch this video or the videos like this and figure out what the truth was.
Right.
Yeah.
And he will.
And he will. Yeah.
I think he's going to come see me, but we're just going to feel the groundwork out first. I've never been to prison. She's been there when she was a 2-year-old, 3-year-old, but to see her father. But we just want to make sure the environment's good for him, and it doesn't. Yeah. But I'm pretty sure he'll come see me. But I walk into prison with my head held high. These poor choices and mistakes I made are difficult, and we'll be weeping our freaking eyes out tomorrow when I walk into the prison as she drops me off, and I got to strip naked and open my butt cheeks and start the process. But that's life, man. You can't enjoy the caviar and enjoy all the private jets and then not be willing to do the time for the crime.
There you go. All right. I wish you guys all the luck in the world, and maybe we'll do another one down the road.
Love to when I get out, Mark.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Thank you for having us.
Awesome. Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mathew.
When I was designing the first Soft White Underbelly book, I realized that there were so many great portraits that weren't going to make it into that book. They just wouldn't fit. And once I saw how well that first book sold, I knew I'd have to design a second book. This second book is finally ready to ship. Like the first one, this book has a collection of some of the best portraits from Soft White Underbelly, accompanied by a quote from that person's interview. This book features another group of Rebecca portraits, as well as a collection of color images of the Whitaker family, and plenty of others. You can order yours for $125 or $150 for a signed copy at softwhiteunderbelly.org. Again, like the first book, once this book is sold out, I will not be printing more of them. The portraits are what Soft White Underbelly is all about, and these two books contain the best of all that work. Thank you for watching.